Hi, Richard.
Morning, Mike. Lovely to see you.
So it's good to see you, and thanks for talking to us about the program we're doing, the Waverley Singers, on the 21st of October in St Thomas-on-The Bourne Church in Farnham. So, I mean, just to get us into it, why not just tell us about the program? What are we actually performing?
Yeah, so we're doing pieces by two composers. The main work is they're kind of works which are obviously very well-known composers, Puccini and Verdi, but perhaps slightly less well-known pieces. Puccini is obviously known for his operas, and Verdi for his operas and the Great Requiem. So these are slightly less well-known, although they're both pieces of the highest quality. So Puccini's Messa di Gloria is a piece for originally orchestra. We'll be doing it with Phil Scriven on the organ, and choir and bass and tenor soloists. It's very much in the style of an opera rather than the kind of traditional Latin mass. So Puccini's kind of showing his kind of flair. He actually wrote it when he was quite young. It was like a test piece for one of his training when he was kind of studying composition, but it was very well received. And despite that, it had a long gap before it was performed again in the 1950s. So he wrote it in the late 1870s, but it wasn't performed regularly until the 1950s and after that. Since when it's been done a lot. The full orchestral version is very beautiful, but the main thing is it's absolutely brilliant fun. It's very exuberant, and it's a bit reminiscent of Rossini's Petite Messe Solennelle in that we hear the Latin mass text, which we're really used to hearing in sort of serious settings by lots of composers. Is there's lots of dancing around and bits. If you change the words, they could be from opera. In fact, he did reuse some of the music in opera.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, you say it's beautiful, which it is, and I don't know, compared to the Rossini, it just sort of seems a little bit more respectful. I don't know. It's very operatic, it's very dramatic, but it still feels like a sort of sacred work.
Definitely, it is a sacred work, and it is. I mean, the Rossini is, of course, Rossini was made a big joke about how the fact that it was a folly of his old age. But the Puccini is a smaller scale work, so it's more appropriate. One can imagine it being it's a sort of liturgical length, and some of the movements are quite restrained. The Sanctus and Benedictus and Agnus are quite short. He actually wrote the Gloria and the Kyrie and the Gloria. No, he wrote the Credo first as a standalone movement, and then completed it into a full mass. But there's lots of things in it. Really great music for the choir. There's some epic arias for the tenor, especially, and lots of wonderful. The piece is actually in lots and lots of sections, as is Puccini's operas. There's not time to get bored because he does one thing for a couple of minutes and then moves on to a different section. There's lots going on. So that's really good fun, and it's a good sing for the choir. It's an excellent sing for the tenor, and the bass has some nice bits to do as well. So there's all that kind of drama and the Italian flair, and so we're going to be doing that, and we're actually going to split up the movements across the concert and put other things in between. So the other piece that the choir has to do is a piece by Verdi, the Pater Noster, which is a slightly dramatized version of the Lord's Prayer text, slightly flowery again. Sort of embellishing it rather than taking, protect us from evil. It sort of says, protect us from the infernal powers of hell. It's slightly dramatized, and that's actually a really late piece by Verdi, so it's written after his Requiem, and it's the height of his powers. It's kind of 7 minutes unaccompanied singing, very beautiful, quite interesting harmonies. A good challenge for the choir. It's like I say, 7 minutes of unaccompanied music. It's a good challenge for the choir. And the other pieces in the program are going to be two arias, one each for our two soloists. So our two soloists are Peter Davern and Jimmy Holliday. They're both singers who are members of the BBC Singers, and they both sung with all the groups. I mean, Peter does solos for the Monteverdi choir, and Jimmy as well. They're both fantastic singers, and they'll absolutely nail these two arias. So Peter's going to sing Nessun Dorma, which will be really good fun, and we're going to get the ladies of the choir to do that little line to go with it just before he sings his top B. And so that'll be really worth coming for in its own right. And then Jimmy is going to do quite a long aria, and a full sort of Verdi big bass aria, because Jimmy is a very low bass. He sings right down to bottom B flat and beyond. And so he's doing a big dramatic aria, Filippo's aria from Don Carlos, which is quite a chunky piece, 8 or 9 minutes long, proper bass aria. So he's going to knock that out. So it's going to be one for opera fans to come to as well as choir fans.
Terrific. I mean, you're going to please everybody with that program. Well, I hope we are as well. I hope we're going to sing it okay. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that the sort of connection between Verdi and Puccini. There's a sort of lovely story which one assumes is true of the young Puccini, 18 years old, sort of walking 20 miles to hear a performance of Verdi's Aida. And that's what decided him to go down the route of being an opera composer rather than writing more liturgical music, because he already had, that's where he was headed. So it's a sort of nice connection, and we've sort of called it sacred choral music, but it's, as you've explained, very much with a sort of operatic flavour to it.
Yeah, what both composers have a sense of, and in fact all good choral composers have, is a real understanding of text. And I think I love the thing about Puccini operas, especially things like Bohème, is that they're very kind of real. The text is very real. The conversation is very real. There's a lot going on. There's never time to get bored, and everything is very kind of true to life. It's almost like watching a film, rather than the formal idea of a formal aria that's going to, with Handel, you have recitative and then you have an aria. It's going to last for the next 4 or 5 minutes, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. With Puccini, it's more like a screenplay. We have a sort of a normal dialogue. So there's that with Puccini. I think that the way he sets the words is it's very easy to hear somehow.
And as you say, it sort of shifts a lot, doesn't it? Different moods. You're sort of going along down one path, and suddenly you're taken to a completely different place, and you have to keep up.
Yeah, he seems to have a bit like Handel, limitless ideas. So he'll go along for a couple of pages with one idea, then as soon as he gets to a next bit of text, he'll just stop and write a new wonderful tune. He'll have another idea and run with it, and then it's like lots and lots of little movements, all beautiful and exciting, and there's just lots of invention. He's obviously got a fantastic imagination and colour.
Well, thank you, Richard. It's going to be a terrific concert. I'm really looking forward to it as a singer, and I hope we have persuaded lots of people to come along and listen to it.
Well, do join us. It's going to be great.
Thanks.